what I'm going to be talking about is the language paper. There's only one language paper left to do for all your 11s, and that's a paper called the it's called the A680 Information and Ideas paper, and that contains essentially 4 questions. I want to talk about question number 1, which is commonly called synthesize and collate. And I think this is quite an easy question to answer if you can just read the question and understand what you have to do. If you make it more complex than it is, then you're going to have problems. And basically, the number one thing it's trying to test you is your reading and inference skills. How well you can read and how well you can infer what's being said in between the lines. If you can do that quite well, you read on a daily basis or weekly basis, then you're going to do quite well in this task. The keys, in my opinion, if you can follow 6 rules, you'll do quite well. And I've got the 6 rules right here. Probably come up on the screen. First rule is something called synthesize, which basically means find what the question asks you to do. So if it's asking you to find what Rachel Oliver's changes in vegetarianism was, then that's what you need to find, what the changes were, how she changed. Not what she did before the changes or how the changes impacted her life, what the changes were. And you just need to find examples of that. So if you do that, you're fine. That's the first thing. Second rule is something called collate. And that's why it's called synthesize and collate. Collate means to basically organize. So you want to organize your response or write it in the way that the question asks you to. So in the question, it will have a line, and then it will say to find 2 things. It'll be 2 bullet points. Sometimes 3 things, but mostly 2. And basically that means you need to do 2 paragraphs. The only way I would say that you would do maybe 1 paragraph if those 2 things interact or relate. There's a cause-effect relationship. Other than that, you just want to do collate, so answer the question how it wants you to. The third rule is you want to use the language of the question always and get repetitive with it in your answer. So for example, just thinking on my feet here, if we take the Rachel Oliver's changes in vegetarianism, you would say one change in her vegetarianism is this, this, and this. Another change is this, this, and this. Once again, she changed this way. So you're always kind of using synonyms or the same words that are basically the question to repeat the points. That gives your answer focus and really allows it to get your point across. And you're basically making it obvious and explicit to the examiner what they want to hear. A fourth question is, unlike all your other papers, is that you are not going to quote. So you're not using the quotations that are actually in the text. They want you to infer and decipher what is being interpreted by what's in the article. So you want to use your language, use your own language as much as possible. So if we look at the Rachel Oliver example, if it says in the passage, Rachel Oliver changed because she felt that it was impacting the way she felt, you want to say one of her changes is that it changes her mood. So you're just changing the wording a little bit. You're once again using synonyms to represent what's being said. And you're not using quotes. Okay, rule number 5 is basically you want to do don't analyze. And this is quite tough for some students. I don't know why, but it's probably because you do a lot of analysis on your other papers. So this one, no point, no evidence analysis, no quoting, no analysis of techniques. Just interpret what it said. The last question is you want to be concise. Okay, so this really goes for the A's and the A stars. You want to make it 2 paragraphs, maybe the front of an A4 sheet. What is this? A4 sheet of paper. It should be nothing longer than this. This is not an example of one, but nothing longer than that, basically. If you're doing more than that, then you need to become more concise. And when you're doing that, look to see when you're repeating points. If you're repeating points, then you're going to do poorly on it. And those are the 6 rules that you need to follow. If you follow the 6 rules, so synthesize what the question asks you for, collate how it wants you to, use the language of the question, don't quote, don't analyze, and be concise, you're going to do fine. Okay? And once again, I can't stress this enough, you need to be reading beforehand. You need to work on your fluency of reading. Make sure you're doing very close reading and very focused reading. This is not the task to be skimming. This is the task to be very reading things over, very in depth, and knowing what's taking place. Because that's where you're going to get the higher marks in this question.